So, welcome back to this was the last in the getting Hadyn competition because Hadyn got to the competition and did very, very well. So he matched the record. So just to kind of reiterate the progress, or to kind of go over what Hadyn ended up doing. So when Hadyn came to us first, he had I think it was a 305 deadlift, a 302, like a bumpers.
Yeah.
I think his comp PB might have been something like, or his calibrated PB might have been something like 275 or 280. His squat was 227 and a half, I believe, when he was, and his bench was 150. So we finished up on a 320 kilo deadlift, or over 700 pounds with bumpers and straps, and 250 kilo squat, which he actually did a couple of times. He did 250 kilos 4 or 5 times. So on a different day, he probably would have had a lot more. And then he benched 167.5 in comp, but he also benched 170 last week. So we had about 20 kilos on each lift in the space of 30 weeks, which was pretty good progress. I think we're very happy with it overall. The bench obviously went quite well. The squat, I think, could have been... What do you think about the squat?
So I think there was actually room left in the squat.
Mm-hmm.
I think we realised a lot of potential in the bench that we could have realised in the squat.
Mm-hmm.
There's one or two things about his squat that just hinder progress a small bit. I think technically we changed his squat in a very positive direction.
Yes.
Like
obviously,
his squat looked very, very nice by the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Which it did, not that he had a bad squat beforehand, but it definitely wasn't great in terms of the aesthetics of it and the movement pattern itself. I think Hadyn got sick a few weeks before the competition, and it kind of made his back very, very weak, or his back was sore and achy for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And we pulled back on the squat. Hadyn, as an athlete, I think in general, him pushing hard all the way up the competition seems to treat him very, very well.
Yeah.
Like, he does very well at singles. He adapts really well when you start really ramping the intensity. So I think that killed his squat a small bit. What do I think his squat could have been? I think he could have squatted like...
His quack?
Squawk.
His quack?
Squawk. I think he could definitely have squatted like 270. 265, certainly.
I think what we missed out with was, I think it was about 2 weeks before the taper week kind of for his competition. So he got sick and he didn't train for, I think it was only about 7 days. So ideally what we would have had there was a very, very heavy set of high bar back squats. So we're hoping to do something like 220 for like a double or a triple, which he'd previously done the week before was 210 for like 2 sets of 3, which were very, very easy. So we would have liked to have pushed his low bar a little bit more and kind of continue on the progression that he was on. So ultimately all these were big PBs for him. The 250 was a big PB anyway. But I think there could have been more there in the squat had he been able to do something like 240 for more reps, or even 250 for a double in the low bar squat, which I think it would have translated to a heavier squat in training, but in terms of competition, I don't think it would have translated much more than like 255 or maybe 257, given how Hadyn seems to miss weights, which is very, very suddenly. So he either makes them, or there's kind of no...
There's no grinding.
So the slowdown from when Hadyn makes a weight to when he drops the weight is very, 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 very little. There's very little change there, or the weights can be very, very small. So, he could hit a 250 and you're like, he's got 20 kilos more, but then a couple of kilos more and he misses out, right? Whereas a lot of people you'll see, for example, if their max is like 250, they'll start slowing down around 220 or 225, and eventually you'll see like, oh, you can kind of judge a little bit better on where Hadyn's going to miss those. So would have more singles been beneficial? Possibly. I don't think we had the time to do a lot more low bar singles. If we had a few extra weeks maybe, or we hadn't had that sick week, then we might have had him a little bit more time with some heavier singles. Not grindier singles, but some more singles. But ultimately, I don't think, given the time frame we had and how much he gained already on his squat, I don't think we would have seen a whole lot more in this time frame. In the future, we will for sure.
Absolutely. I think the only other thing I'd say about his squat is like, you can't negate the effect that a huge weight cut 48 hours before will have had.
Yeah.
So Hadyn had a 24-hour weigh-in. I don't know, did he lose maybe 6 or 7 kilos?
He started at 82, I think, so 7 kilos, I'd say.
7 kilos. Like, he lost a significant amount of weight. He said he didn't feel great during the refeed, which meant he didn't go to sleep until 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning. he then woke up at around 8 or 8:30 a.m. and had to go and get warmed up for his squats. It's like, that is not an ideal situation, particularly for squats. Squats are very, very susceptible to changes or alterations of body weight. So I think that would have been like a deciding factor, or the other deciding factor, in if he had gone heavier or not.
I think on the bench, we realised as much potential as we possibly could have. I think the next ramp up for the next competition, he'll be able to do a lot more bench work and a lot more heavier stuff, rather than building into what we had to kind of taper him back a bit at the start, like we talked in other videos, and then build up again to it. So in the future, we won't need to build up as much, we won't need to drop off as much and build back up again, because he'll kind of been more accustomed to our kind of format of doing things. So there we'll be looking for like north of 180 or probably closer to 190 the next time we will be going for a powerlifting comp, probably somewhere towards the end of the year. On the deadlift, I think something that we talked about trying, and we kind of thought about it maybe kind of near the start or midway through the second block of 10 weeks, we were thinking it would have been nice to have tried conventional deadlift, I think, for Hadyn. So he used conventional deadlift, but under the circumstances and with a different environment and with the way we were doing things, really like to have seen what he would have done conventional. I think due to Hadyn's kind of back angle, so you'll see most sumo deadlifters are very, very upright, and they will essentially squat up that weight. So someone like Yuri Belkin, there's a lot of USA powerlifters at the moment who sumo deadlift because they're cheaters, obviously. But the level of legs they use in that deadlift is very, very impressive. Whereas for Hadyn was still somewhat inclined in his back angle, and he was pulling a lot on the bar rather than pushing with his legs. You know, someone you can really see this with is like Yuri Belkin or Steffi Cohen. They massively push with their legs. There's very, very little upper body activation because the upper body is as upright as possible.
Yeah.
And they really get their legs involved, whereas Hadyn had a tendency to incline. And even when he was aware of this and we were working this as a kind of a technique adjustment, it was still kind of more natural for him to fall forward. And you can see the week after he got sick, when he lost kind of some of his condition, or a little bit of condition, not much, his inclination on those first set of deadlifts he did was a lot of forward lean on his sumo deadlift, which kind of turned it into a pull rather than a push as much with his legs. So something we would have liked to have seen was what conventional would have looked like.
Yeah, and I think we're going to realise that next year. So Hadyn's starting a prep phase now, we'll have a lot more conventional in it. I think what Hadyn's deadlift looked like was a conventional deadlift with low bar with low bar foot position, with sumo foot position.
Yes.
Like his body and the orientation of his torso was very much similar to a conventional style pull, but he was very much in sumo foot position. So that leads us on then to kind of finish this and what the next step is, where the road is going. Hadyn is starting a prep phase now. He started yesterday and nearly got sick in the gym. Or did he nearly faint?
I think he nearly fainted.
So a lot of work capacity stuff, a lot of cardio. He's going to sit around that kind of 83, 84 kilo body weight for a while, I think. And we're just going to push certain things that we felt were weaknesses. We obviously talked about the conventional deadlift. We're going to work in his front squat a lot more. We're going to bring in some safety bar squats more frequently. And it'll probably only be 3 or 4 days a week in the gym. So it'll be a bit of a break from the sessions themselves. Will be very, very difficult. They'll be very high volume. But they'll be a really good place to start in him kind of getting ramped up to Britishes next year.
So we will be we're going to do a few weeks or a few months of conventional deadlifts. It's likely it will help his sumo deadlift anyway if he goes back to it. But we would like to see what his sumo deadlift would do with a bit of kind of dedicated training. And after a good 30 weeks nearly of some very, very diligent and progressive overload. So we'd like to see where he's at the moment with his conventional and see what that looks like at heavier weights. And see, does that kind of affect the way he pulls, and does it affect his grip as much, and will he have a better lift that way? And if not, then it's likely he will end up with a stronger sumo deadlift as a result of that anyway. So that's probably the main change we'll be making going forward in terms of kind of technique adjustments and stuff. His bench will remain largely the same, and his squat, again, when the time comes to return to a volume phase or kind of work phase, again we'll return back to do that. A lot of high bar volume, a lot of the assistance work, He'll be doing a lot of assistance work now, kind of GPP stuff, so we won't need to do as much as that at the start of the next kind of powerlifting phase as opposed to the GPP phase he's in at the moment. So like last time, you would have seen kind of the first couple of weeks of his first program would have been a load of accessory work, which we won't need to do this time, as he'll have it done this now in the GPP phase, so we'll have more time to do kind of powerlifting specific assistance work, and he'll already be in shape when he starts the new block, so we can kind of focus in on that stuff, and we'll have a good kind of repertoire of previous exercises that he's done and previous PBs on those. So then we can look for new PBs and those aim to hit beyond those kind of things, what we previously would have hit. So whatever, like the high bar squat was repping 210, so we'll be looking to rep 230 or so on the next training block, so push things harder. Volume, just sets and volume on the bench, so like 4x3 at like 150 or something, we'll be looking to push that beyond. So just kind of landmarks in his training, we'll be looking to move those up when the time comes around, but for the meantime it's just to do some general training and do something vastly different and give his body a break, because he did push himself very, very, very hard, and he made some great progress, but there's still lots more progress to be made, I would think.
I think we're only scratching the bottom of the barrel here or the bottom of the scale.
I was going to say the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, but the bottom of just starting off the bottom rung of the ladder for his potential. If you would like to do some powerlifting training similar to the kind of stuff Hadyn was doing, we actually have powerlifting blocks available on the website. So there might only be a few up in the website, but the powerlifting blocks go on for months and months and months. This is a very, very similar style of programming, very similar approach to accessory work and exercises and accumulation of volume. And you'll also have access to video feedback twice a week. Any questions you may have can be answered. Just go to the link down below. So it'll be seekerstrength.com/shop and look for the powerlifting blocks.